I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Maxwell D. Cramer, who is Staff Manager, Motorhome Sales, GMC Truck and Coach Division, General Motors Corporation, Pontiac, Michigan. Mr. Cramer joined General Motors Corporation, the GMC Truck and Coach Division, in 1957. He holds a degree in Business Administration from Western Michigan University and will discuss with us design and development of the GMC motorhome. Mr. Maxwell D. Cramer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russell. I was delighted to be invited here today by Marv Rosenman to discuss the design and development of the GMC motorhome. Certainly the theme of this symposium, World Leisure Environments, is the most important subject and one which will become even more significant in an energy-short society. There seems to be little doubt that all forms of energy, including gasoline, will become increasingly expensive and less available. Now, this is bound to have a profound effect on the lifestyles of all Americans, particularly on how they spend their leisure time. So a forum such as this, which brings together experts from both the business community and the academic sector for a comprehensive view of leisure, is definitely a needed and positive approach. While those of us who manufacture recreational vehicles are convinced that in the long run, there will be a continuing need to conserve gasoline, it does not follow that the industry faces a bleak future, however. I'll get into this a little later, but for right now, could we have the house lights down? I'd like to talk about the GMC motorhome. At the time of its public introduction in January 1973, the GMC motorhome represented the culmination of engineering program dating back several years. Incidentally, we later learned that this was not the first full-size, self-contained GMC motorhome. A GMC truck built in 1937 had been upfitted as a motorhome many years ago. This is what it looked like. Now, to our knowledge, this particular GMC motorhome is still operating in California, and we hope you agree that there have been a few significant strides made in design since the early GMC motorhome. The actual date of the conception for the current GMC motorhome cannot be firmly established since it didn't really start out specifically as a motorhome. Instead, the motorhome concept evolved from a GMC truck and coach engineering program to develop a new chassis and body design suitable for a number of potential applications. GMC Truck and Coach has been in the business of producing trucks since the turn of the century and buses for more than 50 years. As a result, our division was a natural for developing a design which could be adapted for such purposes as mobile medical units, offices on wheels, airport transportation vehicle, and emergency rescue vehicles. The early design criteria were established in response to work by the National Academy of Engineering in defining a new mode of transit generally suited for feeding and picking up passengers of rail or major bus transit systems. Since it was envisioned that such a vehicle should incorporate a low floor to facilitate boarding by the elderly and physically handicapped, a low floor was a prime design objective in our program. From that evolved the new chassis design utilizing front-wheel drive and a low peripheral frame without sacrificing road clearance. It was at about this same time that the recreational vehicle business, including motorhomes, was starting to mushroom, and projections indicated that the trend would continue throughout the 70s. Now, there were many reasons for the sudden demand for motorhomes. Americans were constantly becoming more mobile. There was more leisure time because of shorter work weeks, longer vacations, more paid holidays, and early retirements. As a result of these factors, GMC engineers began an intensive program for adopting their chassis design for a motorhome application. The first step in the evolutionary process leading to the integrally designed motorhome was to put an experimental body on our new chassis. Now, this was the first working model. Because of its awkward appearance, it was nicknamed the chicken coop. It may not have looked like much, but it served us well as a test bed. It was a single-purpose vehicle in which body and chassis were precisely matched to each other from an engineering standpoint. Now, before going to styling in depth, we wanted to make sure our basic engineering concepts were sound. Out at the General Motors Proving Ground, we assembled motorhome owners, men and women, to drive our first model and to drive competitive vehicles and compare them. Some of the women were a little skeptical at first about how this crude-looking vehicle would handle, but after driving it, they agreed it was extremely easy to handle, easier than anything they'd ever driven. Our next step was to put together a design group consisting of experts in a wide range of areas. We even called on color and decorating expertise from House and Garden magazine. This design team first studied the industry, some 75 manufacturers, and 115 different floor plans. They looked to see what these manufacturers were doing in the food preparation area, sleeping quarters, and the dining area. But the design group went far beyond a simple study of the industry. They also studied the market. They talked in depth to hundreds of motorhome owners about their likes and dislikes. Next came experimentation, the building and trying out of mock-ups with a wide variety of locations for each major living component. We worked out our interior dimensions with life-size mannequins. At the same time, the first tangible concept of the finished vehicle was attained through scale and full-size clay models. During this experimental stage, the chassis was very much a part of every body study. Every time a major component was moved, its effect on weight distribution was carefully considered. Weight distribution, in fact, is one of the major advantages. Necessary adjustments, some measuring only fractions of an inch, were determined by computer, and every mock-up represented the balanced motorhome we were seeking to design. In all of the interior design work on the GMC motorhome, engineers constantly kept in mind the need for safety as well as appearance and convenience. Corners, for example, are rounded, and sinks, cabinets, shelves, stoves, and the like are not simply set in, but securely fastened in place. Once the basic design requirements were determined, the drafting department went to work to translate all component dimensions into drawings for putting everything together. After that, pre-test and prototype units were constructed for testing, which led to further changes and improvements. Now that I've given you a brief description of how the GMC motorhome evolved, let me illustrate some of its highlights. The chassis features front-wheel drive with a 455 cubic inch V8 engine and a 3-speed automatic transmission. The Oldsmobile engine and Hydromatic transmission have been modified for motorhome application. The chassis has a low peripheral frame while maintaining an 8-inch road clearance. Another unique feature is tandem independent rear air suspension with each of the rear wheels independent of the other. This type of suspension allows the center plane of the rear tires to be the effective spring center. The center of gravity is only 37 inches above the ground. The roll center is at ground level, front and rear. In addition, we capitalize on the opportunity afforded by a single air spring on each side to install air valves in the driver's compartment to override the automatic height control valve. This permits leveling the vehicle when parked on uneven terrain. The six-wheel braking system has disc in front and drums in the rear. All four rear wheels are utilized for the parking brake system. Because of the integral chassis and body design, considerable weight savings have been realized. The body shell features an all-aluminum substructure with a molded fiberglass and aluminum skin, producing a very smooth finish. During production of the motorhome, the interior is sprayed with rigid polyurethane foam. It serves as a dual purpose, providing an excellent thermal barrier and effective noise suppression. For additional quietness, the body is totally isolated from the chassis by continuous rubber strips on top of the frame and by soft body mounts. The rear end panel is removed to facilitate installation of completed living area modules. This allows pre-testing of interior modules to assure that they are functionally and structurally correct before installation. Although the interior configuration was a paramount design parameter, our motorhome did not take the form of a box on wheels. Instead, function and styling were combined to achieve an eye-pleasing vehicle. The exterior height and width is 8 feet, and the interior ceiling is 6.5 feet from the floor. Our approach throughout the design of the GMC motorhome was to create a vehicle as safe, as comfortable, as convenient, and as pleasing as possible for the owner. Therefore, details, both major and minor, have been regarded as extremely important. Take one example, our extra-large windows. They didn't just happen. They're there for a reason. The front-wheel drive design permits the driver to be placed high enough above the road surface to afford him a good view down the road, since he can look over passenger cars. The wraparound windshield gives excellent side vision, and large rear view mirrors provide an excellent view to the rear. Since visibility can be a major safety consideration, we feel our window area is a tremendous plus. The combination of a totally new vehicle design and new production facilities, coupled with a reservoir of experience in building trucks and coaches, afforded unusual opportunities for initiating several unique testing approaches. I'd like to illustrate just a few of the unique tests to which the complete vehicle and the individual components were subjected. This film shows some of the component testing. The handbrake had to withstand tens of thousands of cycles with no significant problems. The gear selector had to pass an even greater number of cycles in an abuse test. The service brake had to survive hundreds of thousands of cycles in a structural integrity test at pedal loads greatly in excess of those normally applied. The accelerator pedal and linkage survived an even greater number of cycles. This is our door slammer to test the integrity of the door hinges, windows, and frames. Several door designs went through a number of slams which exceeded the anticipated lifetime of the vehicle. This is our hydraulic windshield wiper component test. Due to the large size of the windshield, conventional powered sources such as electric motors were simply inadequate for developing sufficient torque. Therefore, we utilized the powerful latent power source, the power steering pump, for the necessary horsepower. This is our lateral rotary fatigue test. At least that's the technical name for it. Our proving ground engineers refer to it as a wheel pull test. It is designed to test the strength and integrity of the wheels and suspension components. It entails cranking the steering wheel to its extreme stop position and running at full throttle. Incidentally, these tests are not conducted merely to substantiate engineering drawings. Their function, quite simply, is to challenge our design. This is the Proving Ground Belgian block test. We use the Belgian block road test for two prime purposes. The obvious one is to log actual road miles under the severest conditions imaginable. The second major purpose is to program Belgian block conditions for our computerized hydraulic shake test. This is our shake test installation, which duplicates the equivalence of 150,000 road miles. It's an example of how we drew on our truck testing experience and applied it to the motorhome project. This computerized shake test was initially designed for trucks. It enabled us to conduct a 7-month series of critical motorhome tests, which would have required several years to obtain the same information by conventional road testing. It duplicates actual proving ground conditions and offers several advantages over actual road testing. For example, all critical components can be monitored visually and by computer throughout all cycles. And it facilitates the use of strain gauges for intensive surveillance of any suspect component. We made several changes as a result of this particular test. We changed the mounting location and construction of the upper cabinets. We determined the bulkheads should be affixed to the floor and roof ribs instead of to the aluminum substructure side panels. In addition, hot and cold weather tests were conducted in a variety of locations, on the desert at 118 degrees and in Michigan's Upper Peninsula at a minus 20 degrees. Testing and evaluation is a never-ending assignment at GMC, and safety is a paramount consideration. A prime parameter is our conviction that, especially in large vehicles of this type, the interest of safety can best be served by avoiding the accident. These accident avoidance parameters include such factors as maximum visibility and outstanding braking and handling characteristics. Extensive quality control and reliability measures have been initiated in a motorhome plant. For example, there is a complete chassis check before the body is installed. The engine is started and operated while the chassis is suspended to facilitate visual and instrumented evaluation and analysis. There are additional extensive checks throughout the plant, including this water leak test. Our motorhome passed what we believe are some of the toughest tests a vehicle of this type has ever undergone. I mentioned earlier that the projections for fantastic growth in the recreational vehicle industry was one of the most important considerations in our decision to enter the market. Throughout most of 1973, these projections, of course, gave every appearance of being right on target. Then, as you know, something happened to change the whole picture dramatically and almost overnight. The Arab oil embargo and fears of gasoline rationing. Suddenly, sales started to fall off, inventories grew, and many firms, including GMC Truck and Coach, were forced to temporarily suspend production of recreational vehicles. Fortunately, the market downturn was not too long in duration. Once the oil embargo was lifted and gasoline supplies began to improve, the market began to rebound as sharply as it had started to decline only a few months earlier. We resumed production last fall with the first of our 1975 models, the Eleganza II. This 26-foot vehicle retains our familiar aerodynamic styling. The interior of the Eleganza II features a muted earth tone color utilizing light tan velour cloth, brown shag carpeting, and simulated rosewood paneling with bright brass highlights. Other interior appointments include a large wardrobe area and fully padded dinette, completely equipped kitchen and fiberglass bath module. The vehicle can accommodate 6 adults comfortably for sleeping. With the introduction of the Eleganza II came a new marketing concept for our motorhomes. We call this new concept Special Edition Motorhomes. Basically, what this means is that we are now building motorhomes in blocks with one type of interior and other standardized features. After a certain number of a particular model are built, production will be switched to another model. Then, depending on demand, there will be a repeat production schedule for the one or more of the special edition models. Now, this approach funnels the efforts of our production operators and the material control people into a one-bill sequence and allows us the opportunity to give our customers superior quality. We are now producing the second vehicle under our new market approach. Named Glenbrook, this vehicle is similar to the Eleganza II, except it has a different interior decor and exterior color. Then this is our new model, which will be scheduled for production in May, called Palm Beach. GMC motorhomes are marketed through a network of motorhome centers operated by certain GM car and truck dealers. These motorhome centers offer complete one-stop service to GMC motorhome owners. In addition, we are producing a series of special purpose vehicles we call Transmode. These vehicles share the same GMC chassis and body used on the motorhome. However, the interior of Transmode vehicles are installed by specialized independent firms for use as medical units, mobile offices, showrooms, training centers, and commercial and educational display units. Before I conclude my remarks, let me return for a moment to the energy problem. Some critics of recreational vehicles have argued that these vehicles should be banned if and when gasoline rationing becomes a reality. However, there are a couple of significant points worth mentioning. First of all, fuel economy with RVs doesn't necessarily have to be bad. In fact, the fuel economy with a GMC motorhome has been greatly improved over first-generation motorhomes. This improved fuel economy is a result of the low-profile, aerodynamic design and lighter weight. We have received confirmed reports of 40 to 70% better fuel mileage with this design. Of course, we don't intend to stop there. We are continuing to develop new design and construction methods which should result in even greater weight savings. In addition, owners have discovered that motorhomes can be used for dual purposes, serving as a carpool vehicle or people carriers during the week and as recreational vehicles on weekends. Many owners also have discovered that they can still enjoy frequent use of their vehicles by staying closer to home instead of taking longer cross-country trips. Now, this trend could have an important implication for the future. For example, we can easily envision the establishment of huge developments surrounding our major cities where owners can park their recreational vehicles and enjoy complete leisure activity without going more than a few miles from their home. There are already some signs that this is happening. A number of the major campground operators have such developments either completed underway or on the drawing boards. And it is a trend which will require the knowledge and expertise of many of you if you are to enjoy the best of two worlds, the freedom to remain mobile and yet to live in a healthy and well-planned environment. Thank you very much.